We are on a mission to save and revitalize independent pharmacy. On the Catalyst podcast, we dive into current events that are shaping how pharmacists approach their patients and their businesses. Fuel your passion for pharmacy, one conversation at a time.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Welcome to the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Key, president of PioneerRx. Today, I'm here with Josh and Mark.
Hi, I'm Josh Howland, vice president of clinical strategy.
Hi, I'm Mark Bivins, vice president of sales.
Today, we're here with Jordan Ballou, clinical assistant professor of pharmacy practice at Ole Miss School of Pharmacy.
She also leads clinical programs at Tyson Drug, the network facilitator for Cpesn Mississippi, and leads the efforts for the Flip the Pharmacy in Mississippi.
I'm so excited to be here.
I know it. We're excited to be here with you.
She let me know that she's probably watched more of the podcast than we have yesterday.
Nice.
When Madison emailed me, I said, I'm a big fan, both of PioneerRx and the podcast. So I've listened to almost all the episodes. I think they're just so much fun, and I love how casual it is. And, you talk pharmacy, but you also just talk about nonsense. And I just think it's so great.
that pretty much, that hits us to a T, I think.
Pharmacy and nonsense. That sums it up.
Pharmacy, so you rename it, the Catalyst Pharmacy and Nonsense podcast.
This is the most summed up version I've ever heard of what this is.
There you go. I got your tagline.
Pharmacy and
nonsense.
I like you.
Oh,
we need a revision.
I've never been pegged so accurately before.
Well, I have met you,
That's
so
true.
it didn't take much.
He knows a lot about pharmacy and nonsense.
And nonsense.
Yeah.
We operate on the PG-13 movement where you get one F-bomb and then we have to edit you out.
Then we edit you. Is it just one?
Yeah, if you go beyond one, you get an R rating automatically.
It's very interesting. I watched a show about the history of that. I don't remember if it was a show, maybe I was at a tour that talked about the history of the rating system and how interesting it was.
Yeah.
And how it came in and kind of went out and came in. Early movies were pretty risque.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild.
Really?
Yeah. There was a fair amount of nudity, pre 1940s.
Yeah. No, it was great. Well, that was, if you look at how, they say that that's kind of what built the internet, right?
Oh, yeah.
College boys. Well, that's what built the movie industry, was this kind of risque, kind of pushing the limits. Yeah, it wasn't, the Charlie Chaplin stuff didn't build movie industry. And so there was, that's what come in, a lot of the controls and stuff had to do with that. But there was some pretty crazy stuff going on in early movies.
I mean, it was after the Roaring '20s, dude. They got weird.
That's true. They brought alcohol back, right? All that. It's get nuts. Makes sense.
Brought it back.
Quote unquote.
The more you read about
have to get a
Prohibition, the more you're like, yeah,
alcohol?
they were.
Yeah, it never went away.
Yeah, there's a reason Kentucky's big in bourbon now.
Right. Yeah. I read where.
And there's our nonsense for the day.
Yeah, there's our nonsense. One more nonsense fact.
Yeah. How did we get there?
I read where Winston
Talk about
Churchill,
being edited.
when he came to visit the U.S., he had his doctor write in prescription for as much alcohol as he needed.
And Churchill was a raging alcoholic.
Yeah, that guy needed it. So.
I was going to say it was probably a lot. It had to have been a
It
lot.
was. I think so.
Interestingly, that probably was the right thing to do for Churchill because he was a huge alcoholic.
Oh.
Yeah, he probably got a little shaky without his drinks.
Yeah.
He had to go dark. All right, that's fine.
Well, welcome to America. Here's your DTs. Go ahead.
Have you ever had a
we've
seizure?
kind of hit drugs,
Alcohol,
and promiscuity.
Yeah.
So
There we
now
go.
that
We're
we've
good.
covered the vices, I think we're off to the races.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let's move to about Jordan a little bit. I know I've been out for a couple of days and hadn't seen these guys, so I'm sure they're acting out for me. So tell us, I think what you do is super interesting as far as what you get to do in your life. So tell us a little bit about, let's just start. Tell us a little bit how you got into being a college professor, and then how you managed to score being able to do some work as well. And tell us all about it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like my pharmacy origin story is so similar to so many other people that I meet, particularly in the independent pharmacy world. I don't have any family in pharmacy, nobody in healthcare. My parents both own small businesses, and And so, but my summer after my freshman year of college, my mom was like, you can't sit around all day. You have to get a job. And so
Nice.
she was like, Elaine from church, her husband just opened a pharmacy and they need a clerk. And so I started working in a pharmacy. It's called Community Pharmacy. They're a Pioneer store in Morehead City, North Carolina. So Michael Wright and Mark LaRoque are the owners there. And I worked for them for 10 years before I finished pharmacy school. So I worked off and on as a technician and then as an intern, and I got to work one day as a pharmacist before I went on to residency. And so I really had every job in that place. And they instilled so much in me about caring for your patients and really treating people as if they were a member of your family. And I value that so much because it really drove my passion for caring for people and for community pharmacy. And I went on to do residency, and a lot of my life I feel like has just been sort of chances that I said yes to. That it wasn't that I had this really like goal sheet of what I was going to achieve. It was just kind of like, oh, that sounds like a great opportunity. Yes, let's do it. And so I did a community residency with UNC, and my program director was like, hey, I'm a faculty member, and you have a lot of similar personality traits to me. Maybe you should be a faculty member too. And I was just like, okay, sure. And so I started looking at faculty jobs during my residency, and I heard about this position here at Ole Miss. I had interviewed at PPS at ASHP and had interviewed like a little short 30-minute interview and loved the people that I met there, and they were so great. And then about a month after that, I had not put in my application yet, but I was at a CPESN early meeting in North Carolina, and I met Bob Lomenick, who I now work with, who is the owner of my practice site. And I met him and didn't know him. And he was like, wait, aren't you coming down to interview for a position in Mississippi? And I was like, actually, yeah, I am. And I was like, I was like, that's fate, right? Like, how did I just meet this man randomly in North Carolina? But yeah, so that's kind of how I got to be here. I in my job, I practice 2 days a week at an independent community pharmacy, Tyson Drug Company in Holly Springs, Mississippi. And then I am our coordinator of skills-based development. So I do a lot in skills lab with our students and simulation. I am the network facilitator for CPESN Mississippi and really involved and engaged in CPESN. And I was, even as a student, I got to work in CPESN stores before they were even called CPESN, when it was still just the Community Care North Carolina project. So, and I love getting to show students that there's better to community pharmacy than maybe what they see or have heard from other people. And so that's kind of my main driver of my passion and excitement. I teach an elective called Beyond Dispensing that's all about that. So lots of different things. I wear a lot of hats, and I think all faculty members, we wear a lot of hats, but I love it. I think it's so awesome to get to be in this opportunity to impact students and to really hopefully change the future and the outlook of pharmacy for them. So
that's
really
cool.
Really long story, but
that's really cool. So it sounds like from your academic side, you're really kind of pushing that. Hey, retail. I think I hear from Josh all the time where in pharmacy school you kind of get taught, hey, you're not a pharmacist unless you're going down the super clinical health system route. And it sounds like you were like, no, that's not the case. You can do all of those things in a community practice and starting them off at pharmacy school level with that.
Right. Well, I mean, I literally had an intern leave yesterday, and, she's at North Texas here, and they were like, independent pharmacy is probably dying. Like,
that's what they really,
in those words, like that. I mean, I heard that at UT in 2008. They're like, independent pharmacy is not going to be around. And I would have never, based on what I was educated in pharmacy school, I would have never taken a job with an independent right out of school because I had a perception that it was a doomed thing.
Yeah.
So your Beyond Dispensing class is an elective. Is it popular?
Yeah, actually, we filled all seats last in the first offering, which was this past fall, and it's only 30 students, but it was so much fun. I brought in all these leaders from both Mississippi and nationally. I had of course, Bob came, Chris Cornelison came, Amina came in.
Oh, wow. Man, you got, you traipsed
yeah,
all stars.
Of course, it was virtual, right? So it was virtual. So they just got to zoom in, which was great. Yeah. And so we even had, and then of course, I have a counterpart who is an adjunct faculty member with Walgreens. And so we kind of worked with Walgreens too, and had a couple Walgreens people come in and talk about the different side of what they're doing. And so that was really eye-opening for me as well. And of course, I'm brainwashed in the independent world. That's all I've ever worked in, and I made it all the way through pharmacy school, only being an independence. But even that was really eye-opening for me, and I hope it was for our students too. That you can be a different kind of chain pharmacist too, to show that side to them. But yeah, it's we talked about a ton of different clinical topics, and the whole goal was that at the end they did a Shark Tank pitch of a business plan. And so we had them coming up with needle exchange programs. They had HIV medication and testing programs. They had developed hypothetical collaborative practices for pharmacogenomic testing. So they were really innovative, and I was so impressed. They came up with all these ideas even before we got to it in class, and then they got to supplement it with what they learned in the classroom. So it was really fun. And I had the guest speakers come back and be the sharks for our Shark Tank.
That's so cool.
And say whether or not they'd fund their project. Was it a worthwhile funding venture for them? So yeah.
I wonder what new project Amina's got going on right now. Then
she bought from Ole Miss.
I know, yeah, and they loved her. I mean, of course, she's an amazing speaker. The students were like, the pharmacogenomic lecture was my favorite one, and it's just because Amina's so much fun to listen to. I mean, her passion just it seeps out of her pores.
It's such a smooth passion too. It's not a crazy.
It infects everyone.
My passion is my arms are swinging and things are getting hit.
That's true. People kind of like
getting out of the way, but her passion is like this.
It's like you don't know it, right?
Smooth
this blanket that sneaks up on you.
Wraps you around, gives you a big hug.
Wraps you in it. Yeah.
Call it the Passion Ninja.
So
right.
Passion Ninja.
Real.
Yeah, more like the Passion Gandhi kind of.
That's true.
Oh,
that's better.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. And so that's led you into being what I just learned about. I didn't know this existed, which is ACT for Pharmacy as well. Tell us a little bit about what that is. I did not know about it.
Yeah, so it stands for, and it's an acronym within an acronym.
It is.
So get ready. It's the Academia Cpesn Transformation. So ACT, ACT, collaborative. And so this was, I guess it's been about 2 years now we've been doing this. But it was basically a collaboration between schools of pharmacy and Cpesn to say that we as academia, we as faculty affirm practice transformation in community pharmacy. And so really working as kind of a part of what I would say is their triple aim, if you will, is flip to pharmacy, ACT, and then getting paid, right? And so that's sort of Cpesn's 3 goals, and they have like a little pie chart showing that. But it's been really interesting to me because it's opened up an opportunity for me to network with other community-based faculty, and many of whom I knew, because a lot of us have like kind of all done residency at the same time, or we've networked as residents in the past, and getting to see too that so many other community pharmacy-based faculty are on their own, just like I am, relatively anyways, that we're kind of by ourselves at our institution. And so it was really nice to hear that from other people. And sometimes it's just nice to know that you're not struggling alone. And so we've been able to network and develop ideas. And there's all these work groups coming out of it. Faculty, we love a work group, but coming out of it to join up and make an APPE syllabus, so APPE for fourth year students, make syllabi for them for a specific related practice transformation course. Or looking at how do we integrate teaching them about the pharmacist e-care plan in the didactic curriculum. And so it's been really cool to develop out sort of this blueprint of how pharmacy education can affirm community practice transformation.
Right. And that's one of the areas where I think a lot of the Flip the Pharmacy cohorts have benefited. The ones that I've seen that have been the best are the ones where you've got a college professor working through ACT with them, right? You've got like Mississippi with Jordan. You've got Arkansas and the PPCN group. Megan and Stephanie at PPCN, like they're just fantastic, and they're clearly the better cohorts because they have like an actual plan. They have somebody that's thinking about how to operationalize it. It made a huge difference.
So it's really kind of letting the pharmacies still think about their pharmacy, and you have somebody else go to how do you run this from like I guess maybe an overall strategy perspective,
well, and part
or
of it,
implementation stuff.
But part of like what the faculty have done, like in Jordan's group, ACT has made like this. Here's your rubric of how to do it. Like that's what faculty is great at, right? And
operationalizing it, and putting a measure. Yeah, no, I remember you saying that. I was like, super. He's like, hey, some of the ones that are doing really well is where academia is helping them. I'm like, what?
Right.
Because I remember I took a little break where I taught school for about 4 years, and I constantly got this isn't a business. Why do you keep trying to run this like a business? What's wrong with you? I'm like, yeah, it is kind of a business. The students are our customers. Well, not really. Kind of their parents are our customers. I'm like, okay, I'm not winning this one. But
the parents.
But to really see academia taking a really more of an aggressive role in transforming a business, it's huge, and it gives you a lot of hope because there's a lot of power back there. There's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of time. To put into stuff like that.
There's some mending that needs to occur with some relationships. I think a lot of, and not a lot, but I would say there's a faction of independent pharmacies that have maybe a negative outlook of academia, right? Of like, oh, we're up in our ivory tower saying here's the way that it should be, but it's totally unattainable for reality. And so I think that Flip the Pharmacy and ACT have kind of been helpful in maybe mending some of those relationships or some of those opinions anyways. And it's been really, really unique and interesting for me, particularly as an outsider from Mississippi, right? Because I came in and just started this job and nobody really knew who I was. Right. And so I feel like I hope that I've been able to show, here's why we want to partner with you, why the university wants to continue to have these relationships with you and try to help you improve your practice and provide the best care that you can. And then of course, hopefully get paid for it too. Yes. So.
Right. So what do you take back regularly from, going from independent back into academia? You work 2 days a week and you're with Bob in your practice site. So how do you take what in theory should be done with how it's actually done in the real world and come back and say, all right, here's how we're going to change our education?
Yeah. I think that that's really helpful for me to kind of have one foot in reality and one foot in the ivory tower or whatever. But to really feel like I have all of these colleagues around who I can bounce ideas off of and say, okay, here's sort of what we've come up with, this process, this perfect, like everything goes well way. And I have been able to utilize our network pharmacies to say, okay, is this realistic? Can you actually do this? And then also I think it helps to show students, to even walk through with students, say, okay, here's what we kind of came up with. Here's what the pharmacies said in response to that. And here's how we're meshing those two ideas and showing students even that it's not always perfect the first go round. Because I think too, we teach students, this is how you're going to counsel a patient. Right. You're going to ask them, the 3 prime questions, and then they're going to respond perfectly in this way. And so showing students too, that it's not always perfect like that. And how we can still maintain those relationships, I think then also instills in our students when they're out practicing in a couple of years to come back and they have those problem solving skills as well. So I think just showing them that part has been most beneficial for me, and being able to I'm very much a collaborator. I don't like to just say, okay, here's the law of the land. I want to say, here's what I'm thinking. What do you guys think about it? Let's maybe walk through it and develop this process together. And so I think my position really feeds well into that, because I am always having to collaborate because I can't be 100% at both places. Right. So it's having to work with the team that's on site, and because I'm going to be gone some of the days, like literally tomorrow, I won't be there. Right. So y'all need to do something about it tomorrow too, to keep it going. So we're trying to work on some sort of filling process. Basically, Bob always says that dispensing prescriptions gets in the way of us caring for patients. And so we're trying to figure out some better, more efficient way to dispense prescriptions. But we also are getting ready to get a big shipment of COVID vaccines, I think. So like literally this morning, we were kind of brainstorming, talking about what we're going to do about that next week.
CPSN in general is getting I think y'all are getting a pretty big shot. I think not everybody, but a lot of people are getting activated.
Yeah, so they're activating. I think they're like doubling the number of states that they've activated with Cpesn this coming up week.
Yeah,
they're getting a big one-time shipment of some Pfizer vaccines, as well as increasing their regular weekly allotment. So it's we're about to really show what we can do.
That's nice. It's good thing we got that import in, right?
Yeah. I know. I've been noticing all the updates that that y'all have been making for entering vaccines more efficiently. So I'm looking forward to getting to use some of that.
Yeah, it's huge. You know, run just most of these are new patients. Although, will Bob's be mostly new patients, or will you really try to focus on existing patients? Will you drive to them? Or?
So probably both. We've had so at one of our locations, G&M Pharmacy, we got 100 doses from the State Department of Health a couple of weeks ago, and I would say that 70 or more of those people were not our existing patients.
Oh, wow.
So we had to add them, manually into the computer each time. And so, I imagine it'll be the same way for Tyson's, but Tyson's is different because it's the only independent pharmacy in the whole county. And so they really kind of have everybody pretty much goes there for the most part. So
that's true.
Maybe it won't be a lot of new people, but
most people in their county, maybe not. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the cool part is, and I was talking to Randy McDonough earlier this week about that, these COVID clinics that are coming through the independent pharmacies. I mean, it's terrible that we're having to deal with this pandemic, but it's a huge opportunity for these pharmacies. You may get 100 people a week that have never even seen your pharmacy before. Like, now's your time to shine, right? Be amazing, get those vaccines knocked out, be efficient, and maybe you've got new customers for life now.
Are you allowed? This is going to sound very like a capitalist.
Yeah,
however, I am one to a degree. Can you get marketing rights and all that when you're in there, or is this something that's probably not a?
Yeah,
is it allowed?
I mean, you're certainly within a business relationship,
federal program?
Right? So if you got a, you certainly got some express consent by the fact that they gave you information.
Right.
So if you get a patient and they give you their cell phone and their email address, you could certainly message them to say, hey, you got your COVID. Have you gotten your Shingrix? Right. You could ask them that when they got their COVID shot. Hey, let's update your shot records where you are. And then you could text them or email them, say, hey, the Shingrix is a good thing.
Within care. Okay, gotcha. Within the realm of
certainly
care.
Within care. Now, the form they filled out when they signed to get their vaccine, they could give you permission to send them more information about how beneficial. But the best marketing that's going to happen is the process of giving them
while
the
they're
shot.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
Looking around and going, oh, wow, this looks like a pharmacy.
Yeah.
These people are nice. Things are efficient. I made an appointment. I got here. It executed well, because that's the proof. Those people who then they have a bad interaction somewhere else. Now they've got a waypoint.
And they've probably already had enough of those.
I'm going to go try that. Right.
Yeah. Right.
You're not probably going to reach out to somebody who went and got a shot to you and say, hey, you should use us because we're better, or here's a coupon for a 6-pack of Cokes or whatever. But you're setting this framework of the next time they're unhappy, now they've got something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
You've shown them some green grass over there.
Mm-hmm.
The other
well,
side.
and we've had people who came in, and I would say that because of we set up, we use JotForm and Acuity to schedule all of our appointments and get everybody to fill out their forms online. And when they came in, I would say the average time from them walking into our door to us having their shot in their arm was 2 minutes or less.
Nice.
And they were talking about, gosh, this was so great. My husband actually just went yesterday and he had to get his shot, and he waited in line for an hour and a half, and so it was just like, yes, that's so great.
Yeah, that kind of
tell all your friends.
Yes,
that
story. Can you write that on our Google reviews?
Yeah, go write that on Facebook. Put that on Facebook.
So we actually used in Acuity, you can send a post message to say thank you so much, and we actually said if you had a really great experience, we'd love to hear about it. Please rate us on Google or on Facebook, and we've actually gotten lots of reviews from it and people who talked about how great it was. So it's kind of nice.
See, and that's thinking.
That's
thinking all through.
There it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that was all Weston, our operations manager. He had set all this up. I mean, we've been ready to go to give shots since January. We didn't get the chance until March the 2nd.
Right.
But he was ready to go, and so I was so impressed with how seamless everything was once we actually had the vaccine. All I had to do was show up and put it in people's arms. So it was great.
Have an experience worth sharing and then make it really easy to share.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to a group and I was like, are y'all collecting emails? And they were like, oh.
Oh, no.
Maybe we should.
Well, should we? Yeah.
Should we? We're getting phones for reminders. We'll get their email too. But
Yeah.
the chain certainly will, but it doesn't matter because the experience is going to be bad. You know, the chains are saying, oh, we're going to see these new people and we're going to send them a coupon for a Coke or whatever. And you're like, yeah, but they came in there and waited an hour and a half. They're like, you know, there's a bad experience. You're not building any stickiness there.
Well, there's a chain pharmacy by my house that's getting ready for COVID shots, and they put like this weird little shack out in the parking lot. And I was like, I don't know if I want to get my COVID vaccine out of a shack.
Shack in the parking lot.
You'll buy your lunch there.
That's true.
Different story, right?
Me and you, Josh, we eat a lot of weird food.
I will eat a burrito out of a shack. Right. I will not get I will not get healthcare.
You've eaten tacos out of an ice cooler off the back of someone's bike before.
I have, in fact, eaten the best taco of my life out of the back of an igloo cooler on the bridge from Juarez back into El Paso.
Right.
Oh, gosh.
It was a risk, and it was worth it.
It was a risk.
Like Mississippi is huge for gas station food. Like that's what they're known for is gas station chicken. You know,
nice.
There's actually a really funny thing of Ed Ogeron when he was coming back to Oxford after he's at LSU now, and they asked him what he missed about Oxford, and he goes, "Oh, that gas station on such and such, best chicken on a stick I've ever had." You know, and it's like he said that's what he missed the most about Oxford was the chicken on a stick. And so I was like, maybe we should go to the gas stations and give out the vaccines there because everybody's getting their lunches.
Yeah, get your shot, get a chicken on a stick.
There you go.
Man, that's a great way to get me in there, but I'm a fat kid. So.
Yeah. I was like, to be fair, if you're going to give me like some gas station barbecue, I'll probably let you give me a shot at the gas station too.
You can tell
your
me what
hands are busy, right? Get the shot. Why not?
Right. So you're also over kind of the clinical effort in general in the pharmacy at Tyson, but you were telling me that you're doing a little bit of what Amina's doing too with in-clinic stuff. And I know you're probably not over that group, but talk a little bit about what you guys are doing like in the provider's office and partnering with those guys.
Yeah, so we actually have a residency program at the pharmacy, and through that, one of our former residents, Austin Crocker, he stayed on with us, and sort of his residency business plan was the RX clinic model, if you will, of doing annual wellness visits and chronic care management, and that was his business plan. And so when he was finishing up residency, he pitched that to Bob, and they kept him on. And so he started going into clinics, and I think he's in 4 clinics now. So we sort of have 2 clinical arms. We sort of have a in-clinic arm and a in the pharmacy arm. And so I'm definitely more involved in the pharmacy because that's where I'm mostly positioned, physically located at least. And so Austin really heads up our clinic arm, if you will. And so our resident is also engaged in that. We've just brought on another pharmacist to spend part-time with the clinic pharmacy and part-time with our pharmacy clinical, if you will, kind of backwards things. But, and so it's been really successful, I think, anyways. The patients love it. We're doing remote patient monitoring with blood pressure machines. And nice. He actually has more providers that have signed on with that part because they just really want to get that data from their patients and make sure that they're taking care of them. The cool thing in Mississippi, they recently just passed a law that goes into effect, I believe, in January, or maybe it's July. Anyways, I think it's July that opens up collaborative practice for us. So used to our collaborative practice law in Mississippi was only one. It was 1-to-1-to-1. So one pharmacist, one patient, one provider. Yeah. But and specifically in community practice, like that's what it said. In health system practice, it could be open.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see a lot of maps I see has Mississippi blocked out. Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to pharmacy practice.
I know. And I don't know why that is. I mean, I feel like there used to be a lot of things. There's a lot of old laws that are still on the books that are there was too much red tape around them. And so the uptake by pharmacists wasn't very high because the documentation and whatever was required by the law was too much. But, I feel like we're really starting to kind of push in that direction and are just hopefully seeing, some really strong advances with that. And I think that's really going to change our RPM service if our pharmacists are able to make adjustments to medications based on the patient's, at home monitoring. That'll be so helpful for us and for our patients ultimately, right? Because Mississippi is terribly rural in that, everybody's rural, even the big cities are rural.
Right.
And so I think this is really going to change the way that our patients are able to consume healthcare and truly get the care that they need. I mean, we're first in a lot of things that you don't want to be first in obesity, first in diabetes, first in hypertension. And so I hope that, that this will really help these sorts of services and appropriate compensation for them, and for pharmacists to want to do them, to be properly incentivized to do them will really help improve care for patients.
Is that is the revenue model there incident to billing on the behalf of the doctor, and a rev share kind of piece?
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the physician bills, and they've just delegated the responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. This kind of feels like that moment when you started to see hospitals decentralize pharmacy. So you used to see just pharmacy lived in the basement making IVs and sending stuff up, right?
Yep.
And then you saw a couple of the teaching hospitals start to put a remote pharmacy or a satellite pharmacy on different floors, like your ICU, your med surg. And it turns out having a pharmacist in that care team works out really well. And now you'd be hard pressed to find a hospital anywhere that doesn't have some kind of decentralized pharmacy services.
Oh yeah, almost all of them do.
Yeah, what's interesting to think about that is hospitals didn't do that because they had to, and they probably didn't even do that based on income potential. They really did that, and that's probably for some hospitals not their main way of thinking. When they move staff and people around, they're moving staff and people around for economics. So they really had to have done that, just had to have been blown away by the change in care.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, you're 100%. Just making better decisions altogether. Right. So that's interesting. What are the providers? Not to harp on this too much, but
no, yeah, go ahead.
What's the big draw on the providers? I'm just thinking through, like, if somebody's listening and I'm like, man, I'd like to get into that. And I think I have some providers in my area that would be interested in it and supplement revenue for them. What are the providers really interested in when you're going to them with a service?
And I think everybody has different motivations. And so one of the interesting things about Mississippi too is that we have independent practice for nurse practitioners. So they can own their own practices. And so that's where, because that a lot of our rural providers are nurse practitioners in their own clinics. And so that's where we've seen the most success. We do have a physician practice clinic that we're in 2 days a week. And I think, everybody's got different motivations, but I think for most it's having a really hard time. And this is what we learned from Amina, because we went and we took her classes. We did the Avant Institute with her, and we even did the class before she even had Avant Institute through PDS. And so we've been kind of planning, and we call it watering the bamboo. I think that's what Amina calls it too, of how it takes bamboo like 4 years to grow after you plant it. Like, what is this? So we've been watering our bamboo for a really long time, but we, I think it's all different, but a lot of them, I think, is that they don't have a very strong understanding of how and why they are being paid what they're being paid.
Right.
So with things like MIPS and their new quality measures. And so when Austin walks in there saying, I know all about MIPS and here's your quality metrics, I can run a report and tell you what exactly you're deficient on, and here's how we can help you get there. Oh, wow. Right. And so it's not just, hey, partner with us because we'll bring you more money. It's, hey, we have a solution for you that will fix your problems.
And that's him working in the pharmacy. He can't do that more remote. Yeah.
So he goes physically to their clinics. Okay. So he spends 3 days a week physically in clinics doing Medicare annual wellness visits, but also he can do stuff from the pharmacy now too. And particularly with COVID, they've relaxed a lot of their rules and allowed a lot more telehealth. Okay. And so that has been really nice, honestly, to reach more patients and to reach them where they are. But yeah, so the RPM though, we even have pharmacy technicians who are helping to support that service and really advancing their role too, which is something that I'm very passionate about, is advancing the role of technicians to better support pharmacists. So
that's so for your like sync calls and things like that, they turn a little different for your RPM patients, I imagine.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. So we have all this extra data now, right? When we're making our sync calls. And that's who's supporting our RPM and CCM program is our sync callers. So they already know these patients. They have relationships with them, and maybe their phone calls went from 2 minutes to now 20 minutes, right? Wow. And they have the plan of care that the physician has developed along with our pharmacist. and the technicians help support us through that plan of care, and they check in with the patients, they document stuff for us. They have algorithms that they go through that says, at this level, I escalate up to pharmacist or, whatever it may be. And so it's just been really awesome too, to watch our technicians grow. And of course, as a faculty member, I'm always interested in the development of others. Sure. And so watching our technicians develop, it's just been really, really phenomenal. And seeing the relationship that they have with our patients and how that's really impacting care.
So how do you replicate that, right? If we had 20,000 pharmacies run like Bob's and Amina's and stuff like this in the country, the cost of healthcare, the way it would go down in the substantive change, I think you'd see some of the big chains stop doing pharmacy, right? It just that big of an impact. How do you do that? How do you...
I don't know. I think one of my favorite things about Bob is that he's always willing to take a chance. And I think you have to be willing to risk a little bit first to jump into something like that, right? To say, okay, I'm going to hire this pharmacist.
I'm going to hire a fairly expensive person.
I agree 100%.
To build a business.
And so you have to be willing to take a risk. And I think a lot of business owners aren't necessarily willing to do that. And so that's part of it too. But I think too, just so many, and Bob always, and I'm going to probably stealing some of his material because I know he's going to come and do a podcast with y'all soon, but he always says there's people who either want to change and don't know what to do. They don't want to change and they're just digging their heels in, or they just don't care. Right. And but I think there's a bigger majority of those people who want to change and just don't know what to do. And I think this year in particular has been even harder on that group of people because they haven't been able to go to shows and do the networking that they might have done with other folks, and just really seeing those opportunities that are out there. And so again, I think that goes back to what can schools of pharmacy do to help them innovate and to show them.
I visited a pharmacy this week who they've probably been open for about a year. Doing about 50 a day, but by every indication, they should be killing it. They're just swamped. They're in a just a big group of doctors everywhere, right? When you look at them on Google, doctor's office, dermatologist, doctor, 85% Medicare in the area.
Wow.
They should be killing it, and they're not. And so what is trying to learn from them? Why? What are some things they're doing? What are things they've tried? Where are they going for information? This kind of thing. And because, we want to help probably. We probably open 400 or 500 a year, new people like that. And one of the things, though, that I saw was, we had an opportunity to do this, right? We had an opportunity to get some COVID vaccines. But, I'm the only pharmacist here, and I was worried I'd get too busy and couldn't do it, right? Yeah. And what was interesting, I was at a different pharmacy about a month before that, the guy we've had on the podcast, and one of his things we really stressed was my answer is yes. And then I figure it out.
Yep.
Right.
I totally agree. It should always be a yes.
And then figure it out.
Then,
she could have hired group those together, hired, an LPN for a day, something, get those people in there. So really, you're right. Some of that's attitude, and how do you help people with that? How do you help them? There's a motivation piece to realize that. Nice lady and her husband. And when they get people in, they stay. They're not having problems maintaining people because they're doing a good job. They're fast and they're friendly. And I watched her do a little counseling that she was very, very well done. But they need to say yes, and they need to get in touch with them. COVID's been rough with them, but they need to get in touch with and learn about what, they don't know about, the stuff that you could do in the pharmacy. And they probably should have another thing. The guy I had been probably a month before started off about 100 scripts a day. He's at 350, he already. And his other thing was, I'm never going to be behind the bench. He got the store and he hired, even though he's a pharmacist, he hired a pharmacist, and he's out every day working every angle. They see him in the public health department once a month going, how can I help you? Another thing this couple was doing was they're going around saying, hey, help us out. Send us some patients.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Will you put our card here? Well, no, you got to be in there going, how can I help you?
Tell them why they should be sending patients to you.
What are your problems?
Yeah.
Hey, Do you have some patients who are really hurting your scores? All right, send me. How about sending me some of those? So it's just frustrating sometimes when you see that this can be done so well, and how do we get more people doing it? And some of those things, flip the pharmacy, and there are certainly things. CPSN's been a big part. You've been a big part.
Yeah, we talk all the time about, and I think this, I can't remember what book this is from, and maybe somebody can figure that out while we're talking about it. But the talking about working on your business, not in your business, and I think that's what so many independent pharmacy owners do. They are the pharmacists, so they are in their business every single day instead of being able to work on it and really grow it and have that vision for what it should be or what it could be. And really take that opportunity. Maybe is it Good to Great? What book is that from?
I mean, I can quote Good to Great pretty darn good.
I don't think that's Good to Great.
I don't think that's Good to Great though.
Yeah,
and a lot of people that's an easy, when they're funding their pharmacy, it's easy to think about, hey, well, I don't have to hire a pharmacist first. I'm a pharmacist. I get that pay. And they don't really think, hey, what I really needed to do first is go ahead and invest. I'm borrowing some money. I needed to borrow another X, and I needed to not be working in the pharmacy at first. Be the backup, be the person, but be available. And so I think that, we're talking entrepreneurship in the college environment, as we're talking to people who are opening pharmacies. And we open a lot. It's one of the things we might, here are some tips.
Yeah. And how do you make it, like what you're saying, Jordan, less scary? It's talking to people who've done it before, reading things like what they've done and things like that.
Right.
You're right. Being able to find out how did you do this, and networking is important.
Right. And some of it maybe, we've pushed, AACP and other pharmacies to teach care plans in pharmacy school. Great. I remember the first time I made a business plan was in business school.
Yeah.
Right. And I took a pharmacy administration elective in pharmacy school, and there was no business planning.
No.
Right.
And some places do a really good job. Like NCPA does their
the ownership conference.
where like the student groups get together and they build like
their
a business plan
competition.
And those are great. But you're graduating 120 kids a year that all they're being taught to do is clinical management of patients, not how to run a business.
Yeah.
We have the elves in the control box. It's the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Oh, is that who did the work in your versus on your business?
Yeah.
Work on your business versus in your business?
I never read that book, so I
Jordan's
don't know where
I don't know where
it got from.
I don't know. Somebody, I'm with you. Like, I'll just, you hear something, you latch onto it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's quoted a lot. When somebody says something smart, people tend to repeat it.
Yeah.
Right.
Wonder, and I'm just pontificating, but one of the things we do with new stores and how we train them, what if every other month we had a boot camp, a 2-day boot camp for our new stores, and we taught them how to use the software, but we included entrepreneurial material about what they should be doing, maybe a couple hour of a Avant Institute, and we put together a little package that was, hey, if you're opening a Pioneer Pharmacy, $300 a year.
Seen or been involved in the NCPA Cpesn Fellowship that they're doing this year?
I've heard about it.
I only just kind of know about it surface level.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a series of master classes, if you will, about clinical management, right?
Okay.
So about for these individuals, it's a year-long thing, and they meet like every other month or so, every few weeks, and they talk about different clinical things. And so maybe you could do something like that, some sort of fellowship, if you will, in entrepreneurship. That'd be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Well, it's just when we look, we have the money that needs to be spent to teach them our software.
Yeah.
What if we intermix that with, and a lot of them aren't going live when we teach them, right? They're getting the software and they're getting ready, and go live depends on when they can get contracts and stuff. So you have more flexible how you could do that education. So, and if we can make it kind of 50-50, get them knowledged and pumped up, and maybe a couple of pinches of PDS and a couple of
like a
little
You're just
chef.
making a little smorgasbord, charcuterie board,
little
thing.
pixie dust,
charcuterie or whatever. I don't know. I'm not fancy enough to know that word.
All right, I think you did pretty good. That's pretty impressive.
I
like it.
Marsha's culturing me. Okay, so you're you're a transplant, right? Let me get into you a little bit. You're from, you said North Carolina. What are you doing? What do you do? I know you're a big college. I followed your Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like you're really heavy into college sports, and you own a Peloton bike. I've stalked a little bit.
Wow.
I do, yeah. So I grew up on the coast of North Carolina, so I'm a beach kid. And so being this landlocked has been very difficult for me, but I've been here for about 5 years now, so I'm kind of getting used to it. But yeah, so I grew up like water sports, we were on the boat every weekend. That was sort of our family thing. And it still is. Even when I go home, we are on the boat immediately. Pretty much like 2 years ago, we went on the boat like on Christmas Day, so it's like, it's just always beautiful.
Where on North Carolina coast?
It's called Morehead City. So it's, it's the southernmost part of the Outer Banks.
So how far is that from like Wilmington?
Yeah. So we're probably like an hour and a half north of Wilmington.
Okay.
And then about an hour, I would say we're halfway between like Cape Hatteras and Wilmington, if that's helpful for geography.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so here I love athletics. I'm one of 3 girls, so I always say my dad kind of raised me as the son that he's never had, and taught me all about sports and
nice.
And all that stuff. So I love college sports. I attend a lot of Ole Miss things. I'm an NC State fan. That's where I went to my undergraduate. So I'm a big fan of and we may need to edit this out, but I'm a big fan of mediocre teams. So I like NC State, and now I'm here at Ole Miss.
We're keeping that in.
I came into Ole Miss as they became mediocre, so they've had heydays before.
It's like it wasn't my fault.
They weren't always like that.
Fault, yeah.
Right.
It's nice to see somebody on the rise, right?
Yeah.
The wolf on the top of the hill is never hungry as the wolf's trying to get to the top, right? So
Yeah. So, but no, so I'm a big fan. I have season football tickets, go to baseball games and everything here too. So, and then of course basketball. Being from North Carolina, you can't.
How do you not? Yeah.
Go up there and not love college
They've
basketball.
produced a few good,
and
players.
they've got one of I think the coolest runs in history back in like the 80s or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, with Jimmy V. And,
with Jimmy V and all that.
And he's running around the court.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Great. Yeah,
everyone knows that.
So and then I got a Peloton bike during quarantine, like I think every other person in America.
I don't know that every other person got a Peloton. You must have got one early.
Yeah, because they're hard to find.
I think a lot of people tried during COVID.
Yeah, I got a 4-month wait on mine.
Oh, you're getting you're getting a bike too?
Just the tonal. It was like a 4-month
Josh
wait.
got a tonal.
Oh yeah, that's like the mirror on the wall.
Yeah,
with the gym.
It looks
it
really cool.
mounts to the wall, really cool. But all of them are. I don't know if you had a 2 or 3 month wait on your Peloton as well, but it's just.
I think it's about 6 weeks, so not too bad when I got it.
Yeah, you kind of caught it early then.
Yeah.
You got the bike, right?
Yes, I did get the bike, and so that's been a lot of fun. I'd never taken a spin class before I got it.
Oh, really? You went all in then?
I think I could do this. Yeah, I went all in. So, and I love it. I do it pretty much every day. It's great.
It's amazing all the money. It's one of the things one of the bankers said to me was, economy wise, sure, restaurants were down, movies were down, but people were spending more money. The economy was in a different place, but the money was still getting spent.
Else.
We have the containers, the shortage of shipping. People are buying so much stuff that it's hard to get a shipping container to ship stuff around the world. So
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, no, there's a big shortage
of plastics, shortage of polymers, all the stuff that we buy that don't come pre-made.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in a business of shipping stuff from overseas, we ordered.
That's what Peloton said their problem was. Was shipping.
Is all supply chain.
They're getting made
general?
fine. No, it's actually physically getting it from one place to another. There aren't enough ships and containers on the ship. We had my wife and I bought a chair. November, October.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did say
and
that.
It's like. Yeah, just
here it is, March.
They're waiting for a container.
At this point, you could have learned carpentry.
I was saying I could have envisioned it and gone to an upholstery place and had it made here in the United States. But so it's super interesting. All the little flexion points in our society. I mean, we had that with electricity in Texas, right? We were in five minutes or so of being blacked out in the state for a month. When you think about how our economy and how everything is so fragile, so just in time and one little place, push here, push there, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and we can talk a little bit about nonsense facts, but so beavers are what's called a keystone species. And
man, we really are going nonsense.
No,
All right, let's do this.
I would not have if you'd have given me a 1 to 10, what he was 10.
I wouldn't have thought beavers were coming,
10
man.
things, what was coming? I would not in 10 guesses have guessed beavers.
I promise you, it's coming right back.
So
it will make sense in a moment.
All right, give him a chance.
He did disclaim it for nonsense. So
Yeah.
Give him a chance.
we're going. I'm ready.
So beavers are considered a keystone species, right? And what that means is they don't look as important to the ecosystem as they are, but because they exist and the things that they do, like chew down trees that were easy targets, so they're dying, diseased, whatever. And then when they dam the water, they end up creating filters. So water pre-dam versus post-dam it's much cleaner, drinkable. So initially people would come in and they would try and remove the beavers as nuisance critters and find out that all of their things got worse, right? Their crops didn't do well. Their water was less drinkable. They got more disease from it. And so we realized how important beavers were. So you don't really move them when they set up their deal. So it's just weird that like something so small, when you remove it from an equation, just completely disrupts everything else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how what we've seen, like all these small things that we took for granted, like Prime Day shipping,
toilet paper.
right, toilet paper, right? Like,
Those simple things. Yeah.
right. The simple things that you never,
product.
when you went to the grocery store, you never thought, man, maybe I should buy 10 rolls of toilet paper instead of 4.
Right.
Are you still getting your mass shipments?
No, I got my last one. They told me they're not doing this again. That was funny.
Instead, everybody just started spending their money on bidets instead of
I know.
toilet paper, right?
I
Like bidets
almost-
are making a huge comeback in America because
I'll
of
say
no
I bought
toilet paper.
one.
You did buy one.
I did
right?
bought
buy
a
one.
bidet?
I did.
Like a thing like an add-on, or did you have to replace the whole
No,
toilet?
I bought an add-on. There was like this group on Kickstarter that had some, and I couldn't find toilet paper anywhere because this is where you pay the price of talking trash to your wife. She would always buy toilet paper when you went to the grocery store, and for a while we had a closet full of toilet paper. And I was like, this is stupid. You don't need that much toilet paper.
Yep.
And then COVID happened,
Jess
and
is
I looked
vindicated.
like a fool because we had no toilet
Yep.
paper.
So the title of the show should be Bidets and Beavers? Probably not.
We'll do it. We'll do.
I think we need to edit that one out.
We might. Thank God this is edited.
Oh my gosh.
Jess
amazing.
is vindicated.
Yeah, so
All right. We just yes. I
Oh,
think
goodness.
Madison just thought of the next business.
yeah.
Bidets, beavers, and beyond.
And other things I didn't realize. So you mentioned you'd been in Mississippi for 5 years. So
Yeah.
I must have. So I've been at Pioneer now almost 5 years. So I must have met you like
Early,
right at
yeah.
the beginning.
Yep.
Neither
Yeah.
of us had any idea what we were getting into.
Nope, not at all. I remember getting to go because I came out to that. We had like a work group with early e-care plans, right? And like learning all about that. And I remember being there and being like, I do not belong in this group. Like I am not important enough. I am not cool enough to be here with these people. And it was just so, yeah. I mean, but that was early. I think I'd been here for a year at that point. So it was really early on. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was about 6 months
still
into the
like
year.
that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I do all the time.
yeah.
I'm never cool enough.
I think imposter syndrome is so rampant in our culture. It
really is.
It's what it is.
Well, I mean, I talk about keystone species. so.
I also have kids that tell me I am not cool at all.
Yeah.
So
That's
feel-
what kids are for, though. I think is to tell you that you're not
really
cool,
to take
so.
you down a peg.
Yeah,
Like when
yeah.
I'm feeling myself a little bit, I just go hang out with my kids, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just
they'll
remembered
figure
that I was the only male clarinetist in the band.
Only male
so
clarinetist. That was nice. All right.
I never feel that cool.
Yeah, I need to come
Definitely.
see you.
yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been there in a while, so I need to come see how it's changed and how many businesses
yeah.
next door Bob's bought
Yep. How many more buildings do we own?
to expand.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I usually went to Mississippi at least once a year for the Flip the Pharmacy meeting, and it's been 18 months now, I guess.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, my guess is that Cardinal went virtual, so
Yeah.
my guess the next
Amerisource would be next, I think.
no, Amerisource has been virtual for a while.
Oh, okay. My bad.
So my guess, the next big one, and even I talked to a guy this week who said that NACDS is probably going to go virtual, and it's in August, and not necessarily because of pharmacists, but because of sponsors. You know, a lot of the retailers, their businesses won't let them travel.
They've made a policy
Yeah.
or
They
something
have a
where they're
policy,
not.
and it's not a through this. It's you can't travel till further notice, and further notice hasn't happened.
I got you.
Yet.
Yeah.
So my guess, the first big thing's going to be NCPA, and I bet it's going to be huge.
God, I bet it's going to be so
NCPA's in October now?
Yeah.
In Charlotte.
Yeah.
And in Charlotte. That's
So I was going to say,
Yeah.
because Asymbia is in October as well. So.
Asymbia moved to October? Yeah.
Oh, they
Yeah,
did.
it's going to be wild.
That's right. MHA went virtual.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet as soon as people can get out, like I can tell you right now that as soon as I get my second vaccine, I'm marching out 2 weeks and it's on.
And it's on.
Anything
It's
after
on.
that.
It goes, and it's on.
I know. It's like they need to just do like no education sessions at NCPA, just all networking. All networking the whole time. We'll meet you at the bar. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. I think it's going to be really well attended and a good opportunity. So it'd be a good opportunity for some positive stories out of COVID. So I think people, hopefully the vaccinations will be caught up by then.
Yeah.
October things should be pretty stable. Probably get in a mindset of boosters, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at how many doses, probably need to be doing those.
Yeah, what does the booster situation look like? Is it
still TBD, but
unknown?
really?
we're probably looking at there's a yearly COVID booster at some point.
And if you don't have to do it for the whatever 12 months, 16 months,
Right.
18 months, it's going to be because of variants.
Right.
You're going to have some type of kind of like the flu does kind of variant.
Right, yeah, you're going to have some kind of predictive cycle and say, hey, we got to cover, the Brazilian variant this week or this year.
Right.
All right, so smart people.
Where?
You are smart people, Jordan, faculty.
Jordan, really?
Jordan, yeah.
Jordan. So could you do a flu vaccine the way that Pfizer and
The
Moderna,
mRNA?
the mRNA?
Yes.
Could you do that faster than you
Yeah.
do the annual regular flu?
Potentially. I know there's still some research in it. The group, specifically the BioNTech group, they were initially developing the mRNA technology to do cancer vaccines.
Right.
And so they're kind of pivoting back into that group now. But in theory, almost any of the regular vaccines that we get, specifically that work similar, like coronavirus and flu, would be good targets for mRNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because and then could that be a single shot then? Like your mix of
That's
flu,
what I was
your
going to say.
mix
I've
of the
heard some research in single shot of flu, COVID annual booster. I've heard some research in that. So.
especially if you did it the same way.
Yeah, I mean, because today your flu vaccine is really a combination of 4, right?
Right.
You get three A's and a B.
But is that based on like a monkey virus? What's the flu? How do they do that?
So they do epidemiology studies on that, and so they basically guesstimate the
it's
4 most likely.
It's a projection
strains.
on what
but
the strains
it's
are
a
going to be.
dead virus. It's
Correct. It's
it's inactivated.
It's
Yeah.
inactivated.
But like the Johnson and Johnson is across
A
species.
vector.
correct.
Is a different type of
Right.
a virus that doesn't really affect us bad.
Right.
That they make like it.
That's right.
Yep. All right. Thank you for my education.
No
Just
kidding.
things I'm curious about.
All that stuff I did not know and won't retain.
What we're saying. Hey.
And we'll forget immediately what this called.
I might.
And I'm sure that almost no one who listens to this podcast would believe that mRNA has any effect on DNA at all. It does not.
Noted.
Right?
Just
mRNA
for a
affects
disclaimer.
protein synthesis, not DNA. So
Yep.
no changing your DNA, no control.
Noted. No
The
5G.
microchip has been there for a while.
Well, Jordan, thank you. Your smile is
Thank you.
infectious. I think
really
we
is.
laughed more
thanks.
here today having you here than we normally do. So I think we'll probably get a big kudos from our team after this. So we should appreciate you and all you do, and looking forward to getting to see you again.
Yeah, thanks. Me too. Good to
right.
see y'all.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you.
Jordan.
Thank you for watching the Catalyst podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and or following us. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts to help us reach more amazing pharmacy people like you. Follow PioneerRx on your preferred social media platform for the latest up-to-date pharmacy news and content.